Howdy y'all, it is Cody from the Keeper's Nerdum. How you doing? Today, by request, we are going to cover one of my favorite to look at, favorite to paint units, and we'll see about my review of them. The Skorpekh Destroyers from the Necron Codex. These buggers are something special. First off, before we get into it and show off the models, right here you can see they are listed right there. 3 to 6 models. Boom. 35 points. Now, that's actually been reduced. They are now 30 points per model. So there is a reduction, which is very good. This helps them. Now, real quick, let's show off the collection. These are just 3 of the 6 that I own and have painted myself. And honestly, they were a ton of fun to paint because since they're a bigger model, they are much easier to paint and mess around with. Still was working on some of the design that I wanted for their blades, but this was a fun thing to do because I really wanted this blue energy effect and changing the color towards the outside edge of the blade and whatnot. It's been a lot of fun, and really, like, models like this are so much more fun to paint just in part because they are a little bigger, so you don't feel like you're constantly just fighting against the fact that they're itty bitty. Now, that being said, some of the itty bitty ones can look amazing once you're done, but these you can really make look stunning because they come out so well. And really, some of it's just simple things like putting just the bronze coloration right there in between for the pistons just to give it a different effect and coloration, and really makes a big difference. So I love it. This is the big boy. Oh, one thing to show is the shoulders. You can get sometimes in like combat patrols the actual Necron logo stuff and other little designs for Necrons, and even something simple like that as a circle. It's hard to get the camera to focus in on it because I did some coloration on there as well. And this guy obviously has a very different weapon, and we'll see exactly what that means. You'll see the different colorations on the blade that I did to give it as though the energy is focused out towards the edge to hit harder, which makes absolute sense. And honestly, what's fun is the glossy clear coat, once you put it on here, really changes their just perspective of how they look. Oh, there's the logo I picked for their shoulders on this guy. Fantastically fun, and just so much fun to just do because they're simple but yet very eloquent. I figured out a few more tricks for their eyes actually, but before I like doing this, painting a little bit of an edge around their face to make sure that you could see this area, and then I figured out some other tricks to do as well. But overall, just so much fun, and the coloration that I got to do with these, fantastic. Now, like I said, they're already 5 points less. You can take up to 6 models, so for every 3 you're looking at, and minimum 3, you get 90 points, so 180 points to take a full squad of 6. The one issue with them, as you can tell, is their bases are pretty large, and the model itself is big, and so you just have to be aware of that they're going to be easily seen just because of their model size, but it's also, they look awesome on the board, and they're terrifying, especially once somebody gets hit by one. So let's talk about Skorpekh Destroyers in all of their crazy, weird glory. And this is an interesting one. Let me turn the camera a little bit, or the lighting. There we go. That'll help some. Nope. All right. We'll adjust. Hang on. We're going to get this where we can see it. I apologize. There we go. Much better. Okay. So Skorpekh Destroyers, 3 to 6 of them. They have an 8-inch movement, 3+ to hit, 3+ for ballistic skill, although this doesn't matter because they do not have any ballistics. Their strength is 5. Their toughness is 5. They have 3 wounds each, 3 attacks each, 10 leadership. So they won't ever fail a leadership roll. It would be hard pressed, except if you had 1 left and 5 of them dropped in 1 turn. They save on a 3+. They don't have an invulnerable save, so that's the unfortunate thing. What's interesting about Skorpekh Destroyers is there's not a whole lot going on here. There we go. Okay. There really isn't, but we need to read this. For every 3 models in this unit, 1 model is equipped with Hyperphase Reap Blade. Every other model is equipped with Hyperphase Threshers. So everything that we could tell was Hyperphase Threshers are the 2-handed things. And so things like this, which ironically, both of the models for the Hyperphase Threshers are actually different. But then the Hyperphase Reap Blade is the double-handed thing. So it's the big boy weapon that it's coming at you and it's gonna hurt and it's gonna be bad. So really, really neat. And these things do two different things. First off, the hyperphase reap blade. And so for every 3 models, one of those 3 will have the big one. And what it does is it is +2 to your strength. So it's actually a strength 7. And if you can get it to strength 8 against a 4 toughness model, you're doubling it. So you would wound on 2s. Now, -4 AP. This thing hits like a truck, and it does 3 damage. So this is meant to destroy things. And I mean, this could even chop through vehicles because a lot of them have toughness 7. Now, occasionally you'll see toughness 8, so there's ways to get around that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Hyperphase threshers, however, though, they just have a strength of 5, so you have to be aware of that. -3 AP, 2 damage, but each time the bearer fights, it makes 1 additional attack with this weapon. So the attacks actually for those are 4. So you get actually 3 attacks for the big guy, and then 4 and 4. So, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? 11 attacks for a squad of 3, 22 attacks for a full squad. That's assuming, though, that they survive. That's the problem. Now, first off, they have living metals, so every turn that the model that's wounded isn't destroyed, it will regenerate 1 hit point. Reanimation protocols, they can be resurrected. It's very hard because they have 3 wounds, so you have to roll 3 5s and 6s. Command protocols, so they gain access to the Necrons codex stuff for command protocols, which nowadays are really good. And ironically, Novak for them would just be absolutely insane. And hardwired for destruction. This is where things get interesting. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. Now, first off, that's fascinating. I believe these are now core as far as this stuff, so they also get core. You can give them the +1 to move. You can give them the +1 to attack, like to hit. And the moment you do that, all of a sudden the 2+ weapon skill with reroll a hit roll of 1, they are going to hit things. Now, one of the things that really unfortunately sours me on them is their bases are very large. But the real thing that sours me on is every time I have played them, I have missed or they have saved out of something that should have decimated them. Like not them, but as in the thing they're targeting, they have saved out of it, even though I've got this high AP, because so much in the game right now has invulnerable saving throws. And so they go, I'll take my invulnerable saving throw at a 4 or 5, and all of a sudden I've got nothing. Oh, I forgot to show. Look right there, my little skull I painted. Really, really simple paint jobs, guys. Like doing a little pink inside the eyes, then white, and then taking a wash and just going over it to give the effect of just darkening and making it look like it's actually a skull that's been out and used and abused over the elements, right? So these things, they're awesome. They hit hard. The one unfortunate thing is their movement, while 8 inches is decent by all accounts, there's a lot of stuff nowadays that can move faster, and even in their codex, because these are a newer model, there's just things that are faster. I love these things. I love the concept of them. Unfortunately, about every time I've played them, they just don't do what they're supposed to. And you may be thinking, well, Cody, you just aren't doing what you're supposed to. Well, I'm getting them in, they're succeeding at their charges, and then they go to swing, half of their hits miss, even after sometimes giving a +1 to hit, they still miss, and then the rest gets saved away, and 2 or 3 damage, 2 to 4 damage gets through. Very, very frustrating, and I never understood that. But one thing to talk about, and I don't even know if I have a model of it built. I think I do, but it's bizarre. Every time I'm about to take it, it kind of just gets thrown away out of my options, because this little guy, the what is it called? Canoptic Plasmacyte, costs 15 points per model. It's just a little guy. And so you're like, oh, I could just throw 15. And it's interesting. This is the first big synergy just right off the bat, right? This guy itself, he only attacks with 1 attack, -1 AP, 1 damage. This is not meant for anything other than a few small things. So it can actually be in a dimensional translocation, so it could actually be off the map and then spawn in later, which is kind of cool because it could be where you need it later on, and it has command protocols. Bioconstruct, if your army is battle-forged, and for each dynasty destroyer cult, which is what the Skorpeks are, included in attachment 1 Dynasty Canoptic Plasmacyte unit can be included in that detachment without taking up a battlefield rule slot. So you don't have to, you still have to pay points for it, but it doesn't take up a slot as far as building your team, which is good. You cannot include more Dynasty Canoptic Plasmacyte units in an attachment than there are Dynasty Destroyer Cult units in that attachment. So if you only have one set of 6 Skorpekh Destroyers, you can only take one of these. Makes sense. Evasion Protocol. Well, this model is within 3 inches of a friendly Dynasty Destroyer Cult unit. Enemy models cannot target this model with a ranged weapon unless it is the closest eligible target. In addition, this unit cannot perform actions. So my understanding is before 9th edition, this thing actually was just a part of the Skorpekh Destroyers. That's why we're talking about it. And now it's kind of separated, which actually makes it kind of tough to mess around with because it has the same movement, but it's just kind of frustrating because of like things like this. In the unit coherency checks step of the morale phase, if this model is not within 6 inches of any friendly Destroyer Cult units, this model is just instantly destroyed, just blows up. So it has to stay with them. And it's like, so why not just keep it included in here? And you just have an option to add that on. But here's why you take this thing as a potential. There's a lot of other things you could do with the Skorpekh Destroyers, but Infuse Madness, once per turn at the start of either of your charge phase or the fight phase, you can select one friendly Dynasty Destroyer Cult unit within 3 inches of this model. If you do, roll 1d6. On a 1, one model in that unit is destroyed. Regardless of the result, until the end of the turn, add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristics of models in that unit. Each unit can only be selected for this ability once per turn. So it goes from, for 3 of them, 11 attacks to, another 3, so 14, right? But if you roll that 1, then all of a sudden you're destroying 1. So you just have to be careful. And it's one of those things that +1 strength doesn't sound like a lot, but getting to a strength 8 for your big hyperphase reap blades and even strength 6 for your hyperphase threshers can really matter as far as being able to wound. And getting that extra attack can make a big difference. So overall, I think it's a really, really cool thing. Well, there's just a lot of interesting thoughts. I've never actually taken it because I always end up taking something else, and I always wish that I would just to be able to see it, but knowing my luck, I would end up rolling that 1 almost every time. I need to check and see if you can actually reroll that with the stratagem or not. And they're a neat unit. The +1 to hit with Overlord, just immediately add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Boom. My will be done. So you can do that. Silent King may be able to do that as well. Let's check that real quick. Side note, I'm excited for that day where we talk about that. So he's kind of weird because he's got My Will Be Done, Necron's core, so they'll be able to be targeted now because everything's basically core except for just a few things anymore. But also, let's see, there was something else here. You can also get the add 1 inch to the movement, and a lot of things have that. And for the Skorpekh Destroyers, a +1 to move is a really big deal. 9-inch movement really does matter rather than an 8 because it just gets them closer, which means a less of a charge roll that they need to make to get in. So Farron of the Stars is not the thing. Farron of the Blades. Well, a friendly Necron's core unit or Triarch Praetorian unit is within 6 inches of Skorpekh. Each time a melee attack is made by a model in that unit, you can reroll the wound roll. Now that's where things get interesting. So if you took Silent King with Skorpekh Destroyers in front of him, especially with him, this is so interesting because he has where is it? I can't find it. I know it's right here. Oh, there it is. Obeisance generators. At the start of the fight phase, if there are enemy units within engagement, if there are, see, there's missing there's a typo there. If there are any enemy units within engagement range of Skorpekh, then until the end of the phase, those units cannot fight until after all of the eligible units from your army have done so. So some things say we essentially fight first, even if you charged us. In this case, that would override that. And even if somebody charges you, as long as the Silent King is a part of that, then he goes, okay, you charged us, which normally mean you fight first. Now you are in the same phase as us, and so we get to start this. So I get to choose who fights first. I'll take, Silent King. But then also if you have Skorpekh Destroyers in there, it rotates back and forth. But if you do this and you get to attack first, that could be really big for your Skorpekh Destroyers, for your Silent King, to stop some major damage. Now, the last thing I think we really need to talk about. Novak is a big deal. Another piece of this is if you take, I believe, Novak, you can get both directives of this. And so each time you make a melee attack with a unit, an unmodified wound roll of 6 improves the AP by 1. That's actually really good, except for so many invulnerable saving throws. That's unfortunate. And then each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack, if that unit made a charge move, was charged or performed a heroic intervention this turn, add 1 to that attack strength characteristic. So there's another way to get +1 strength without blowing up your stuff. Now, the one thing I can't ever remember is how many really interesting, fun things the game actually has for them as far as really cool stratagems. First off, let's look at Novak just so you understand. This is another thing. Add 1 to charge rolls made for units with this code. So if you run Novak with Skorpekh destroyers, they're going to go faster. Each time a model of this code makes a melee attack, if it made a charge move, same kind of thing, AP up by 1. So that's good. So +1 strength plus another AP, big deal. And then you get to use both protocol directives. You also have, let's go to the stratagems real quick for Novak itself. Use this stratagem in the fight phase. When a Novak unit from your army is selected to fight until the end of the phase, add 1 of the attacks characteristics of models in that unit for 1 CP. Guys, that's where it shines, right? Right off the bat, those are big deals. Now, shooting phase, Locust Destroyers, Flayed Ones, Tomb Blades, Triarchs. Man, sometimes I wish I knew the stratagems a little bit better, but I will say it's a fascinating thing. I kind of wish our stratagems were updated a little bit because some of the stuff is just meh. Wow. Let's see are they canoptic? I doubt they are, because all of a sudden that might change my appreciation. They are not canoptic, so never mind. All right, moving on. And that's the unfortunate thing is our codex as Necrons came out pretty early, and so it's had some things have gotten better and better over it, and that's unfortunate because I love playing them, and they have gotten better because of what they've done in the game, and that's really good, but it's just the unfortunate thing is some of this stuff just hasn't aged well comparatively. There we go. Okay, disruption fields. We could use that one. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when a Necron's core unit from your army is selected to fight until the end of the phase. Add 1 to the strength characteristics of models in that unit. So +1 strength. There's another way to get that. So you could put those on top of each other and that would be pretty crazy. Okay, and then unfortunately, Skorpekh Destroyers, Whirling Onslaught. Use the stratagem in any phase. When a Skorpekh Destroyer or Skorpekh Lord unit from your army is selected as the target of an attack until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from that attack's wound roll. So they're somehow using their blades to actually defend themselves. Pretty cool. Nothing too crazy, but overall, it's okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it over there. Those are some of the big right off the bat things that really synergize with them, because the Skorpekh Destroyers, they are an attacker. You know, there's some other things that you could look at as well, but let's see if the Skorpekh Lord actually helps them really quickly, because that's another question of, is it useful? Skorpekh Lord, here he is. Let's talk about him. I don't have him yet, but let's see just down here if there's anything. Well, a friendly Dynasty Destroyer cult unit is within 6 inches of this model. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. That's not bad. It is helpful. It does do something. The unfortunate thing is this is from what I understand, a pretty beefy boy as far as point cost, and Hyperphase Harvester. That's cool. -4 AP there. Yeah. That's interesting. What? Do you just get to choose one of these? Guess so. Yeah, you get to choose one of these attacks. And if you do this one, you make 2 hit rolls instead of 1, so you get double your attacks. So you get 8 attacks with this versus 4. Interesting. So that's the one thing that it really helps with. You can technically resurrect the Skorpechs with the Technomancer. So Technomancer right here in your command phase, you can select one friendly Dynasty Core unit within 6 inches of this model. One destroyed model from that unit is reanimated. If the select unit is a Necron Warriors unit, okay, so then at the very least we can get a model back, which it's only 30 points, but these guys do hit like trucks. So if you could resurrect them towards the middle of a battle because they just are still going, just to run them in after shooting something to lock stuff down, even if they don't kill it, at the very least it's locked down and has to deal with them, or they might, you know, die. But at the very least, you have a chance of knocking out some more of the stuff. So overall, these are the Skorpekh destroyers. I love the concept of them, but unfortunately they tend to die just because they're harder to hide. They're just a massive, massive base. It's really cool though. I was kind of nervous painting these, and then I got into them. I'm like, these are so much fun because they're a beautiful concept model. Anyway, let me know down in the comments below what you think of Skorpekh destroyers. Do you run them when you play? If you play, and if not, why not? You know, what's the elite choice that you take? Because there's definitely other melee options that are out there that we haven't talked about yet. So I've been Cody the Keepers and the Keepers of Nerdom. Like and subscribe and comment down below. Take care.